Okay, this is an interview for Ain't It Cool News from Karen Oughton, and we are here with the amazing guys from American Mary. Firstly, very quickly, can you tell us a little bit about what your film is about, please?
Yes, American Mary follows the story of medical student Mary Mason, played by the intoxicatingly talented Katharine Isabelle, who grows increasingly broke and disenchanted by medical school and the surgeons she once admired. So the lure of easy money and notoriety sends her into the messy world of underground surgeries and body modification that leaves more marks on Mary than her so-called freakish clientele.
I love it when you do that.
I know.
Okay, in terms of the, as you say, freakish clientele, obviously there are some, we see people with body modifications, but we also see them with some interesting habits.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what you think is kind of constructive freakery and what is destructive freakery?
Oh, we both took the breath in because we both go for it.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing is I find when people are just examining, expanding on aspects of themselves, and like if you have a forked tongue or you have 3D implants, that's a way of you expressing yourself, not necessarily for society to accept you, but more as a way of you are doing this for yourself and you feel comfortable like that. For example, like with Ruby Real Girl, there are not too many women I know that have ridiculously large breast implants that did that because they're like, you know what I feel would make me feel better about me. Like some do, but some are trying to fit in an aspect of what they think other people would accept as beautiful. And
I think that's our main problem
Yeah.
with cosmetic surgery versus body modification, because at a large, cosmetic surgery is to fit into everyone else's ideal of beauty. And you know, you're not really happy with yourself when you're doing that. If it is for yourself, our hat's off to you. We're more than encouraging of it. But if you're doing it to fit into an ideal of somebody else's beauty, largely the American ideal of what's beautiful, but it's just disappointing.
another commentary in Western things, a lot of in Western cinema, you have your characters and they're so squeaky clean and flawless, especially female characters. It's like, oh no, it's a girl. She couldn't possibly have an aspect for evil or capacity. And I was like, what if we just gave everybody just so many flaws in this, like real human beings, and you can choose to like them or not. Like my dad, he actually thinks everybody in this movie is horribly offensive, even you, sweetie, except for the
Especially you.
detective. I know.
He thinks I'm offensive.
No, Mary, not you. He loves you.
He
but-
thinks you get your comeuppances.
Well,
This is one thing I was wondering about. Obviously, in a lot of the publicity that comes out, we see people saying what a lot of the interpretations you've come up with yourselves. Has anybody ever come up with an interpretation you've thought, actually, really, no, that's not what we meant? And if so, how have you reacted?
Well, a lot of people say it's a rape revenge film, and I'm like, you're not really paying attention to the whole on that. I mean, there is an aspect on it, but I feel there's two instances before that even comes close where her psyche's picked away, like with the rat and the ruby surgeries, and you have a different reaction every time she comes home. We even have the exact same shot of her coming into her apartment, and it's a different reaction. When people are like, oh, it's just this, I'm like, I tried to make something so complicated, and you guys are just making it as simple as possible, but whatever. I didn't make it for you, I guess.
I took real offense to one review said that we were displaying the body mod community in a Glee-like fashion.
Yeah.
And it was because they see, and that was the complete opposite of what we're doing.
Yeah,
is
promoting
that,
a degenerate lifestyle
Yeah,
in
we're
a
promoting
positive
a-
light. I was like,
and I was absolutely disgusted by that because it's so close-minded. I think some people feel more comfortable to be able to point the freak finger at other people because then it's like, oh, well, there's something wrong with those people. I'm squeaky clean. I'm a normal person. But those people are the villains. I think people like to pick out villains and to like, have scapegoats in society. And I feel that the body modification community has been at the shit end of the stick for that one for a very, very long time.
yeah, it's how terrible if people feel better about themselves.
Yeah, spot the reaction to that one, I think.
So yes, I guess sometimes people's interpretation annoys me.
One thing that comes across very much is that there's so much of you guys in Mary as a character, all of you. How has the reaction to Mary as a character, how has it made you kind of feel about yourselves?
so
I didn't realize
She
it.
didn't realize when
I
she
didn't-
finished writing it, but after she wrote it, because when we were writing together, I was like, oh, so we're writing Sylv. Okay, I totally get that. And then at the end, she's like, well, Mary's kind of this, Mary's kind of that. And I was like, or Mary's you.
Sylv.
Mary's like the lengths that she goes to, the way that she doesn't want to compromise her morals. And when she does have to compromise what's important to her, it is on the same level to her as the rape, because it's like I've lost a part of myself, I've given a part of myself up. But it was very vulnerable to have people watch American Mary.
I feel really uncomfortable, especially when people know me and they're like, "Oh, hey, I see you in that." I'm like, "No, I'm a private person. That's this character that everybody made up." But no, it was really interesting to see, because I was a lot more unforgiving with the character of Mary, and Jen and Katie put a lot of heart into it. There were some times where it's like, she'll be like this, and Katie's like, no, she has to start with this, and she has this light about her, because if it's like this, then no one's going to do that. And these two women have a heart and a beautiful outlook on the world. I mean, Katie's a little more darker, which I totally dig, but Jen has this beautiful outlook on everything.
I did before I started talking to some critics about it. It's over in North America, not here. Over there, I'm like, really? That's what you took from the film? Yeah. It's okay. The cliff notes will come up for you later.
I know, but it's fun. I think one of the best experiences I have after someone sees the film is there's something that relates to them about it, and they'll tell me something personal that they've gone through, and they're like, just like this. And a lot of girls go over to me and they're like, there's this guy and I wish I had a storage locker. And I'm like, yeah, man, me too. I wish I could just string that bleeped out word up.
Yeah, interesting one. You girls, realistically, you're sexy as hell, feisty as hell, and by God, you're uncontrollable.
Oh, Karen, we love you.
Seriously, you are at once a PR dream and nightmare. How do you feel you compare to the idea that we know it of Scream Queens?
I think Scream Queen, like horror movie, has turned into a very degrading term. When I was growing up, it was Jamie Lee Curtis, although I didn't like her being, a very vulnerable kind of waif. I liked it when Sigourney Weaver was the evolution of the final girl, because that's what really got me into, oh my God, I want to be her. And that's, continued on with Joss Whedon and Buffy, and that's what we continued on with American Mary. Mary is the new evolution of the final girl. But I think that it would be an honor for the Scream Queen to be described as a character like Mary, instead of a girl who is in a very vulnerable and gratuitous position. I think sex and violence absolutely have a place in films, but it depends on how it's used and how it's done.
And I think people have like a weird preconceived notion about women and their love of horror films. Like, my mom showed me my horror films. We grew up watching those. It was a very like me and my mom kind of thing. And they're like, women don't like them. I'm like, what do you mean women don't? I've been watching them since I was 10. Me and my mom would have these conversations, and they're like, but isn't it this and isn't it that? I'm like, do you watch horror movies? Do you look into any of them? They're like, well, I don't like these ones where chicks are running naked through things. I'm like, are you aware that there's more than just that? Have you looked outside of the U.S., maybe in Europe or Asia or anywhere else or in history? And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, well, obviously you're well-read.
This is the interesting thing, because, as you say, there is so much of a perception, especially, I suppose, in the market that doesn't normally get into kind of theatrical release, whereby the girls will be running around with the boobs hanging out, doing the pouts and all the rest of it. Very powerless, even if they end up being the final girl who's kind of standing legs apart at the end going, ha.
Yeah.
In terms of that, and in terms of being within the business sector and trying to promote Mary as a product to get put through and to survive, to remain intact as how she is, realistically, the horror film circuit is still a business.
It is hugely a business. I remember at some markets they go, where's the nudity? Because there are some markets that will buy movies sight unseen because there's a tit shot in it. And they get very uncomfortable if there's a penis shot. And Jen and I make sure that we have a extreme close-up of a mutilated penis and everything. I don't know why. I just want to even the scales a little bit, just because you don't see enough.
I'm really honored when the trailer for Universal for American Mary came out, because before that there's a lot of people that were saying, well, it's got to look like Saw, it's got to look like Hostel, and I'm like, you're setting your own film up to fail. Because when you see
people will be disappointed if that's what they're going in to look for, and
if you're looking for Saw or Hostel, go see Saw or Hostel, absolutely. But American Mary, I mean, when the trailer came out from Universal, it's tasteful, I mean, it's artful, and it shows that
it represents the film the way that it is.
Yeah. Rather than the way that they think people want to see a horror film. It was actually the other ways that people were coming to us with it. is a very Americanized version, like blood here and gore here and beautiful girls here. And it's like, we have that, but we have it not just in a gratuitous and needless fashion.
And that's one of the weirdest reviews we get. We're like, oh, I thought there'd be more nudity and blood. And I'm like, and that's why you didn't like the film, because it was something you didn't expect?
This is the thing that I was wondering about, because it is something that you don't expect. You've said that the film is partly a way of looking at the monsters within the industry, the people who are unkind, cruel, manipulative. Is it possible to win that battle against the monsters? Have you been scarred at all?
We've absolutely been scarred. When I watch our original film, Dead Hook in Her Trunk, probably people who know me can see it in my eyes, but there's a part of me that's just not there anymore. Like, there has to be a shield up, and there has to be a coldness, and I will react with someone a lot more harshly than I would back in the day, because you have to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah, it's funny because some days I watch the movie and I'm like, oh, awesome. And then some days I see every single fight, and it's hard to, but that's why I always have, like, I got to work with my favorite actress. That was one of the most nerdiest moments, just standing a few feet from her while she's doing all this stuff I wrote and dreamed that she would do. Or my dad has a cameo in it, and so does my mom. So I see them, and even though I'm getting distracted with the process, I see what's there, and I have to do that. So I still enjoy it, because I have so many people that come over to us and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are so happy, but in a few years, I'm like, no, in a few years, I'm still going to be like this. I might be more screwed up in the brain, but that's just, I'll use that to get creatively into different projects.
I think we can win. I don't think it's an overnight process, but any time that I meet a young girl that says, I want to be a director as well, I wanted to be an actress all up until now, but I didn't know I could be a director, writer, and the storyteller as well, and it feels that we're winning in a small way, because there's more of us and our numbers are growing, and maybe a girl who is too afraid to go on this path herself is taking a chance. And I hope that what we're able to do in our careers will make it easier for not just girls.
So you have a beautiful way of looking at it. When a young girl that's pretty
can
comes over
do
to
it.
me and tells me that she wants to work in this industry, I'm like, oh God.
Run, run!
Is there anything else, sweetie, that you can do that you'll be happy with? No. Okay. Well,
Follow your dream.
follow your dreams.
Follow your dream.
And well, I feel that you have to talk about all the negative stuff, because then they're prepared. Then it's like, oh shit, if I do something around her, she's going to talk about it in every interview. So at least you're trying to change it.
Wicked, thank you so much. And
Okay, thank you.
Jesus, guys, so well done to you for any cool views. American Mary people, seriously.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I said the F word halfway.